also on Facebook too.
Hello and welcome to For We Are Many.
Oh,
Hi, my name is
muted. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
Today we are joined by Kwame, Shakur, and Hy Thurman for the Principled Unity book tour. They're doing the East Coast. If you want to introduce yourselves and say a little bit about it, feel free.
Go ahead, Hy.
All right. Well, actually Hy Thurman. The purpose of the Unity book tour is to bring individuals and groups and organizations together to discuss their commonalities, in hopes that they can get together and do future actions, in the legacy of the first Rainbow Coalition through the second Rainbow Coalition. The books are only a tool just to get in and start talking to people and trying to organize people and trying to get people together across the country, because both the original Rainbow Coalition and the second Rainbow Coalition, and following the legacy of the first coalition, we were all about coalitions, getting groups together, getting people together, to create some type of revolutionary change, within the country, to fight oppression, to police brutality, everything else that was oppressing people at that time and still are. I mean, we were successful to a certain point until we started getting COINTELPRO and police, brutalizing us, and so we're carrying it on through the second Rainbow Coalition.
And I'm Kwame Shakur, the current chairman of the second Rainbow Coalition. This is like the follow up what Hy said. This is like the meeting of two generations. Hy being a part of the first generation, me being a part of the second generation of the Rainbow Coalition, and showing the continuity of the movement where we are now, and taking it forward to its completion where they started off on, and Hy being one of the elders that was a part of the first and the second, he was critical to the establishment of the second Rainbow Coalition, being very fundamental in its maintenance and projecting it across the country with me and stuff, the statement of unity is like a development. Like the first Rainbow Coalition didn't have a statement of unity. We have a statement of unity. You dig what I'm saying? So we're trying to take this to a higher level for the 21st century. So like he said, the books is like a vehicle to explain, the legacy and how we got here. Even my book, when I talk about my book, I always talk about like when I first started to read about the Black Panther Party, came across Fred Hampton's speech, "All power to the people, power anywhere there's people," and never realizing that one time in that cell reading that book, that speech from him was going to take me on a trajectory where me and Hy Thurman's paths crossed, because that was my start of revolutionary consciousness. So linking that up to where we are today, It's an interesting story that I always like reading different parts of my book to show, like, I was just like everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't very conscious, you dig what I'm saying? But it's a process to get to there, you dig what I'm saying? So this is part of me, is showing that process to becoming a revolutionary, to joining this movement, to linking up and forming these broader networks and alliances. So yeah, that's a little bit breakdown of what this means to me, to add to what Hy was saying.
Oh yeah. So speaking of like the two of you meeting, like how did that come about? Like did you look up Hy and just find him, or did he hear about what you were trying to do and hit you up? Or
It's funny because it was a little bit of the both. Like Hy started to follow me on Facebook. I already knew who he was. Jose Chacha Jimenez. I met. He was one of the first ones that I met. He had me when the first Rainbow Coalition movie documentary came out on PBS. It was him. You know, if you don't know who that is, that one watching, he was part of the legacy too. He was the founder of the Young Lords. Took them from a street organization and they became a political organization. But he told me about watching the first Rainbow Coalition documentary. I watched it. Then we started it May 14th, 2021 out in New Jersey. And Newark, New Jersey. That was the White Panthers, New African Black Panther Party. And at that time, they called themselves the New Young Lords. Now we all recognize them as the Young Lords because they continue the legacy. You know what I mean? But Hy was already my Facebook friend. I don't know who a friend request, but I was already familiar with him, and I knew that he had probably was watching some of the stuff we was doing. But Andy Willis, I think, was the first person to find out that we established the Second Rainbow Coalition, and he reached out to Hy, and they started to talk. And Andy Willis reached out to me, and he was like, "Well, hey, we would love to like work with y'all. You know what I mean? Me and Hy Thurman is a friend of mine, and he already knows that I'm talking with you right now. But we would like to find a way." At first, it was like just hey, we would like to do a Zoom, you know what I mean? But then it
right.
developed in like we want to be a part of the Elder Council. Then it became, hey, we want to be a part of the movement all the way in. And so they've been very intimately involved with this from day one. You know what I mean? I look at them as founding members too, you know what I mean? Because they came right in the very beginning and they helped us develop this, you know what I mean? So we've been partners ever since, comrades ever since, friends ever since. Like he's out of all the elders of this generation, I give the most credit to Hy as far as me as being a part of like furthering the vision that I've been trying to push out here. Like Hy's been the most supportive. You know what I mean? It's not to take away from any other elder, but I want to go on record and say like history should remember him also for how much he was influential in the stuff that the Second Rainbow Coalition and even my relationship with him. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously, you know, Hy, you should be remembered for the work you did in the first Rainbow Coalition too. Or I mean, North Alabama School for Organizers is
Yeah.
another pretty big thing, you know, like, yeah, I feel that. So Hy, like where has your political journey taken you? I mean, I know that with all the COINTELPRO stuff, you know, the first Rainbow Coalition didn't stay around forever, obviously.
Yeah.
But you never like stopped organizing. Like,
No, I didn't. Even though, you know, a lot of us had to leave, you know, Chicago because of COINTELPRO, and you know, right after Chairman Fred was assassinated. You see, some of our people in the Young Patriots were already being murdered, and none of that was being documented. You know, so and even before the Young Patriots, there were two other organizations that kind of blended into becoming the Young Patriots, which one of them was a street gang called the Peacemakers. And my my older brother at that time was one of the leaders in that street gang. And I came to Chicago when I was 17, and just kind of fell right into it. And what pushed me into it was cops, harassing all the time, and just the slum living conditions and poverty, which is what I came out of in my hometown in Tennessee. But it was sort of a continuation of, I guess, anger that I had, and wanting to make some type of a change. And so some of the peacemakers, were being murdered and beaten, and people were just being beaten on the streets, and then we kind of moved toward an organization called Join, Jobs or Income Now, which was started by Students for a Democratic Society that came into Chicago and was originally just talking about trying to get people jobs. But then they found out that the uptown area that we were in had the highest rate of unemployment, and it's you can't grow a garden on a street on asphalt. And that's, most of the people there came from farming areas. So there was a lot of poverty. And I saw people, dying of lack of health care. Some people were dying of actually, starving. So it was pretty bad. We were treated as we were treated as trash by the entire city. And so we got involved in Join. I'll tell you, one of the reasons we got involved in Join is because of the women. We were just a bunch of young guys at that point. So we see all these student women over there and we're like, hey, And so we started hanging out there, and, we already had our political ideology. We just didn't know how to express it, and so most of us were Marxist, and didn't even know it. So we started getting some political education through that. And then we had a march on the local police station for brutality, and started drawing in people from the community. And I think there's around 500 people marched on the police station from police brutality. And then since that time, they continued. Right after that, they killed one of our members. And so we got more and more involved in, say, the community. And then this wasn't, the first Rainbow Coalition was not the first time that we were recognized by the Black Panthers. The Peace and Freedom Party ticket in California was running Eldridge Cleaver as the president. And so they came in our community, wanted to find a white person to run as vice president. And they found Peggy Terry, who was a former, white supremacist, and she was also a Klan member at one time, and she was married to one of the upper Klan members, but had gotten involved with SNCC and started changing. So she became very knowledgeable, in explaining this change, politically. And so we had from that, and we started becoming the Goodfellas, actually. So we wanted to change that because that's associated with, with the mafia. And so one day we just said, hey, we're serving our community. Why don't we become the Young Patriots? And the reason for that name was that we felt that at that time, the Patriots back in the, American Revolution, they were actually fighting for their people. So we said, well, let's be the Young Patriots. And that's how that came about. But how it came about was after, we were approached by Fred Hampton and asked to be a part of this Rainbow Coalition. And the first Rainbow Coalition kind of explains that a little bit. There's another movie called American Revolution 2 that was made back in 1969, which specifically shows the relationship between, the Southern whites and the blacks within Chicago. But from that, and everything else probably of what happened when we got involved with the Rainbow Coalition, and we helped, they helped us set up free health clinics, food programs, police, brutality watch. And so from there, we were treated as the Black Panthers were treated. And then we continue organizing, and J. Edgar Hoover came out with a statement saying that, there is a Messiah in Chicago that needs to be neutralized. And he was talking about specifically about Fred Hampton. And he said the Black Panthers have recruited like-minded organizations to be a part of their coalition. And they specifically named the Young Lords and the Young Patriots. So we were treated as a threat to national security. The only thing we're trying to do is feed kids, and trying to do that. But anyway, from there, the rest of the story, where Hampton was killed, was murdered. They came down on us pretty hard, and then some of us decided that, hey, we're going to cool it for a while. We got to get out of here, because every time we stepped out here, we were either getting beaten, thrown in jail, and there was a high risk of, our families being threatened by the police. And so I just took my wife and my baby at that time and moved back to my hometown in Dayton, Tennessee. And then from there, I was harassed because the FBI would notify the police department of wherever we went to. And we were harassed. I was harassed in my hometown. I had to move out there. And then I just went underground. I wandered around for a while. I did a lot of organizing with homeless folks. I actually got into a ministry at one point, and I got into various other organizations, and then I just kind of wandered around down south for a while. And then it was some years later, when I found out that James Tracy and Amy Stoney had written the book Hillbilly Nationalist, that I read it, and I said, I didn't even know this book was out. And so I got in touch with James Tracy, and he said, yeah, we've been trying to find you for years. And I said, well, I didn't want to be found, at that time.
Right.
So then this was probably only 12 to 15 years ago, that I decided I needed to come back out and get back involved in the movement. And so what I did was I started rebooting the Young Patriots, and started doing some programming here and in Chicago. And then from there, it just took on a whole new, different scene. I kept organizing, and of course, through the years, I've gained more political knowledge, because I never left the revolutionary movement. And so, I kicked in the Young Patriots. From there, we went to a program for the homeless construction project, building structures for the homeless, because these folks are really screwed over. These folks really need help, and these folks, you can talk to them, and they're really revolutionaries. And so we started organizing groups to represent themselves. And then from there, I don't know, went to the North Alabama School for Organizers, and which we started training organizers and holding, educational classes. And from there, it just kind of developed other survival programs. Like we have a program which is the fixing people's cars, the free car clinic. and we get people, we'd get somebody's parking lot or whatever and throw up a tent, a canopy, and we have mechanics that would come out and repair people's cars. And that's been a very big success here. And then we also have an organization called Blues to Bluegrass, in which we involve musicians and artists. And we're making our first album here, which should be out. And local talent, in 2 months, about 2 months. But it never stopped. And then I ran into Kwame, and that's what started really me back into the national movement. And so that pretty well gave me a purpose. It gave me a direction to go in. And I think what we're doing now, and then I wrote my book, and it was a very simple book. The book is Revolutionary Hillbilly, and it's my it's my life that I put into it, and I wrote it specifically in the manner that it's written. I want it to be where someone with maybe an 8th grade education can read it, because I've seen too much academic books coming out, people writing for the poor, but they never let the poor people write, and we never encourage that. So that's what I was trying to do. At the same time, fighting white supremacy, within basically the Southern white at that time. But now we can see that, white supremacy is all over the country now, with Trump and, his regime. And so by it being written where they could read it, because when I came to Chicago, I was reading on the 3rd grade level. Okay, so I had to struggle to learn to read, to do all this and get through college. And I wanted them to understand that they could do the same thing, and that you don't have to have a major organization to cause a change. None of these organizations, like the Black Panthers, are the biggest, but the Young Patriots, we had about, 15 members. And convincing people that 2 or 3 can make a change in this world, and that's what I try to do, to fight against, and to educate against the capitalist system that's putting them in a peg hole here, and just convincing them that they're useless, convincing them that they have no power. And so they gravitate to those people who say, you have power. And of course, that's people like Trump. So we try to change that. We definitely try to change that all we can. And so that's pretty much where I'm at now. Never really stopped, kept trying to educate myself, got involved in some other organizations. And then, I don't know, I'm really looking forward to this book tour. I always look forward to working with the Second Rainbow Coalition. And I think that this is going to create some change, within our country. And I think it already has. And I think this is something that, the first Rainbow Coalition is the blueprint. The second is the building, and
I like that.
It's the mortar that holds the bricks together. So I think that's where we go from there. Like Kwame or I or any, we could be a great CEO of some, some organization, some corporation, but that's not where we're at. Our heart is with the people, that's had the most suffering. And it's an honor for me to, to work with the Second Rainbow Coalition. Kwame, he's one of my best friends, and we always get along pretty good, and I'm looking forward to going out on the road with you too, Rob.
Oh yeah, same. Me too.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But that's basically, I could talk forever, but I don't want to, because Kwame might want to talk and say,
Yeah. So, Kwame, if there's anything that you specifically want to talk about, you're free to. Otherwise, we can talk about, the the tour in general, the stops and all that.
Yeah, I think one of the most important development happened to me yesterday, and I'm hoping this brother is able to get out there for our stop in New York with the People's Forum that we're gonna be attending March 29th. So if you're in the New York area, New York City area, New Jersey area, you definitely don't want to miss that stop. You know what I mean? But I dedicated my book, my autobiography, and I'm definitely gonna speak on this at every stop because I've been fighting for this and pushing for this for a long time. But I said in my dedication, I said this book is dedicated to Leon Benson and Royal Amos, who have spent over 23 years and over 15 years, respectively, in prison for crimes that the state of Indiana knows they did not commit. I also dedicate this book to Alonzo Hayes, my stepfather, who passed away in 2020. Yesterday, if you was in another part of the universe, it didn't know, but my comrade Leon Benson got out of prison after nearly 25 years. You know what I mean? Yesterday, he's out here. We went to greet him. He walked out the gates. You dig what I'm saying? And we embraced. We started to chant. Then the truth never dies. You dig what I'm saying? Like that was his slogan that I remember when we was in prison talking about this. He was like, yeah, the truth never dies. It's just rediscovered. You know what I mean? So,
I like that.
So when he came out the doors, like I started to chant. I was like, the truth never dies. The truth never dies. The truth never dies. You know what I mean? It looked like it was choreographed, but it was all like organically, like everybody that was out there, it was like a surreal moment. Like I knew his sister and daughter before I even got out of prison because of me and him talking about them and then getting out here working with them, doing different demonstrations, fighting for his liberation. For him to come home, like that was a monumental moment because I dedicated this book to him. You know what I mean? Like I talked about his story in my book, you know what I mean? And now for him to possibly be out in New York City around the time that we out there is like a big highlight for me. You know, I told him, I was like, when you get out here, comrade, like we building a platform to speak for the people and stuff. And I know you one of the strongest voices I came across in there, you know what I mean? So it's gonna be nice for the introduce him to Hy and all the comrades and stuff like that. If he can make it out there a few days before April the 2nd, because that's when he was supposed to come out there. But if he can make it out there 3-4 days before then, he can meet all of y'all, a lot of people in the movement, possibly just get up there and speak a little bit about his situation and stuff like that. But yeah, that's something I definitely like. I dedicate this interview to Leon. You know what I mean? This is my first interview since then, him being released. I actually had an interview yesterday, but I canceled that to be out there for him walking to the gates. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like that was an important moment. I think that's a part of this tour in a symbolic way. Since I dedicated this to him, hopefully the next one, Royal Amos, he'll be freed after 17, 18 years. You know what I mean? And he'll be out here too. This is another comrade of mine that I think is going to be critical to our movement. So yeah, absolutely.
All power to the people.
All power to the.
That's fucking exciting. You said almost 25 years.
Yeah, almost 25 years. Like I was in the county jail with this brother. I didn't know him at that time. We used to see each other on visits and stuff like that. I don't know if he paid attention to me, but I looked over at him and I was like, man, all these young black brothers out for her. So I took note of everybody around my age group. You know what I mean? When we got to prison, that's when we sat down and he told me within our first conversation, imagine this is you in prison, you just started your bit, you only been down like 2 years, and you come across a person like him and he's telling you, he's like, in the first conversation, I didn't even do what I did to be in here. You know what I mean? Like I got a lot more time than you have. And I didn't even do the stuff I'm in prison for. And then that was the first time me and him talked. But later on, we got on a lockup unit. And that's when I started reading his paperwork and all that stuff. I think another important thing before I get to that, he played a valuable role in the title I picked for my book, My Search for Answers, Truth, and Meaning. The meaning part comes from him giving me a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl, which had a profound effect on me. You know what I'm saying? It really changed my way of looking at life. Just very briefly, Viktor E. Frankl said, the reason why we wake up every day is because we're looking for meaning. We have a meaning. We have a purpose. The reason why we wake up every day and want to live, because he said life is suffering. And the purpose is find meaning within the suffering. And that's one thing Hy was even talking about when he got a part of the Rainbow Coalition. He was like, now I felt my purpose through this vehicle. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with me. It's the same way. Like when I first met y'all, like that was an interview that turned to y'all being a part of the revolutionary movement with us, because y'all found purpose. Y'all found meaning in it. You know what I mean? And he was a critical component to that. That's why I even named my book and put the meaning aspect in there, is because of him. So like he's a part of this book tour in a symbolic way, in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? And for him to be getting out at this time is like, man, surreal. You know,
synchronicity, man.
Right.
That's some epic timing there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so there's it's the last week of March, and there's how many stops? I should know this off the top of my head by now, but
you're muted, Hy. You're muted, Hy.
They're going to be 6 to 8, stops. What we'll do is, I think, just list them real quick here. We're going to start out, in Baltimore at Red Emma's Bookstore and Coffee House. Then from there, we'll be going to, it's Libertyville, New Jersey, and that's going to be sponsored by the Human Rights Economic and Human Rights Campaign.
For short, Poor People's Army.
Yeah, Poor People's Army. And we'll be going to also to Making World's Bookstore in Philadelphia. And then we will go to, I guess, Providence.
The 28th, yeah.
28th. And then on 29th, we have to be in New York, for the the People's Forum. The 30th, we'll be going to Yale University in New Haven. And then we'll be tracking on down to Richmond, Virginia on April 1st.
We might have one more stop, and that's in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Okay, we got
that the New Era Young Lords is trying to hook up with this Afro-Caribbean Cultural Center or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting tour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
It's definitely a busy week. That's for sure.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very busy. That was like the other one. The West Coast tour was like that too, and a lot of people coming together on that. They're very interested in it, and like I say, it's just a way of getting people together. And as a matter of fact, since we went to California, we were at Merced, University of California. Since that time, they've had us back out there again. And Kwame couldn't make it. I went out there, and now they're talking about getting us back, to be involved in a documentary program that they're putting together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, we got a dog visiting.
Yeah.
It's pretty-
But what type? What's that? Pit bull?
Pit and Husky. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got mine laying down here by my feet.
Mine's
Yeah.
not
All right.
really by my feet, but he's oh, hold on, let me turn off this stupid
Yeah.
virtual background.
Well, I showed you the video of our dog. You would think
Oh,
He's a big boy.
yeah. My dog's laying the same way. He's an Australian Shepherd.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a good dog. But this is a podcast about politics, I guess. You know what was funny? I got to tell you the story though. When we went to Florida, to help organize. Kwame's wife is organizing a organization for missing women, and what is it called, Miss Diversity or something?
Yeah, the Miss Bursary.
Yeah, as soon as I got to give my talk, a woman had a dog and it started howling, barking. I said, "This is really gone to the dogs, you know." But anyway, I'm sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
good. Sarah always likes to jump in and send the podcast straight to the dogs too.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So oh, excuse me. In terms of
real
the overall tour, I mean, there's going to be representatives from a bunch of different groups speaking, right? The New African Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, the Poor People's Army,
White Panthers, you know.
right.
And yeah, we'll probably have, people from Democratic Socialists. I'm contacting them right now all over the country because they have chapters all over the country, and asking them to come out.
John Brown.
Yeah, John Brown Gun Club.
Yeah, they're gonna be out there.
And just other organizations and people we don't even know about yet. So they'll come out and and visit. So some of the definitely want to get the young lords out there, from New York too, because they weren't a part of the original Rainbow Coalition, but they've been going for a long time. And maybe somebody from Maine. I don't know. We're still working on that a little bit. American Indian Movement.
Oh, hell yeah.
So we'll be working. I'm working on that still.
There's a American Indian Movement group in Massachusetts too. Maybe we should reach out to them.
Yeah, sure we can. I just need a contact here. I know that the folks from Yale are also involved in the American Indian Movement, and so there might be some people from there too. And I think it's very important that we get everybody involved. Every color, because our coalition button has all the colors on it, and that was done deliberately. When we made that button, we painted over Nixon Agnew button for president.
Mm-hmm.
We had so many of them, we figured we'd use the button. So that's the legacy of that, that particular button. It's become a universal national symbol now.
Yeah, I always wondered why it even the new buttons, they look painted. Now I know.
Yeah. Yeah, we just set down a bunch of it and just painted and painted and painted, and there's a few of those around. I saw one on eBay selling for $700. Somebody was trying to sell it. Yeah, I'm like, hey, I should have kept mine.
In the comments, Rob Rich just asked to ask you, Hy, if you can teach Kwame how to play pool.
Oh yeah. Wait, no, I can't say this. We were in Florida and he beat me all 3 games.
Rob, he experienced that too. So yeah, Rob already knows about that. I probably need to ask somebody to teach him.
Yeah, we had fun. We were shooting the pool, and I haven't shot pool in, man, a long time.
Yeah.
He just wiped me out. So
So,
it could have been the influence of alcohol and other substances, but we won't get into that.
shout out to Rob Rich. That's one of my dads.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really wish some of the White Panthers from Northwest Indiana could make it out here too, like
Yeah.
Rob and Jake. That would be awesome. But money, man.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're going to do a Midwest tour, in which we want to go up to Wisconsin, down through Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, get down into Kentucky, maybe here, even down into, Georgia, Mississippi, those places. So there'll be an opportunity. We want to give everybody an opportunity to get in on this.
Yeah.
But
Michigan is where Rob and I are both originally from. So if you want, we can throw down with you on getting you set up with some folks back there that I'm sure would love to have you guys bring the book tour there.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Michigan.
In Michigan.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yep. I'm originally from Flint, and Rob
Wow.
lived up north.
Oh,
He spent some time in Flint and Detroit too. So we know a lot of organizers around there.
Yeah, I lived in Flint for 6-7 years, something like that. It was a while.
There you go, Kwame.
yeah, we might need to talk because I'm going to be going back and forth from here to Flint. I'm working with a sister, Dr. Krista Lee Crane. She's from Flint. She got a community center out there that's about to open up pretty soon, called the Everly Collective. We definitely gonna have to talk about that. She shout out to her. She donated a significant sum to helping this book tour even happen. Because we was struggling to raise all the funds, and she kind of pushed us over the hump. You know what I mean? So appreciate her contribution to happen. But yeah, we definitely need to talk because that's gonna be one of the critical locations. I always talk about we need to institutionalize this cultural, social, political power in the community, developing this dual and contending power. She's right along the same lines. She's actually building the institutions and funding these things, you know what I'm saying, to push forth some of these visions that we have. You know what I mean? I think she's going to be a critical part of what we're doing across the country. And I look forward to continue to work with her and comrades up in Flint that we're going to start working with. So
there's a lot of good comrades in Detroit too.
Yeah.
I've lost contact with a lot of them, unfortunately, but man, like when I was living in Detroit, there was one group that was, seizing abandoned houses and fixing them up. And there was another group that was, like abandoned lots where houses had burned down or been tore down or whatever, planting community gardens. I mean, like all over the city.
Yeah.
It's we can do anything here with this. And now that we have the tools like the First Rainbow documentary, the books, encouraging other people to write books is very important.
Yeah.
So onto the books for a second. Sorry to interject, but like, do you guys want to, maybe plug where to get the books or?
Mine's available most places, even Amazon, but Regent Press out in Berkeley, they're the ones that are that's publishing it. But it can be found, like I was checking with, I think it was Books A Million, and they had sold out, so and they're getting some more in other places too. And then someone just sent me a picture on Facebook that they found it out in Portland or Seattle, that they were, in a bookstore. So, it's getting around, they're getting around. So that's probably the best way to get mine. And, or just contact us. We can always get you a book, with our emails.
Yeah. You can reach out to me. A lot of people got Instagram and Facebook, Kwame Che Shakur. You can always inbox me on there. Um, Also, Amazon, you can get it to Amazon. But I like to send mine out autograph copy, and put a few words in there, you know what I mean, to a person that reached out to me. So either way, you can get a copy of my book. I would say a funny story talking about it's getting around. I was when we was down in Florida for my wife's anniversary for her sister, Kaya Taylor, that's been missing for 3 years. We came across this sister named Cynthia from Milwaukee, and she was like, "Oh, you got a book out?" She was like, "I would like to." Yeah, I was like, "Yeah." So I went in the room, and I only had one copy that I was actually gonna give to her cousin, but she was like, when she saw it, she was like, "Wow, I was just in Barnes and Nobles, and I was actually thinking about getting this book right here." You know what I mean? Now I'm sitting in the living room with the person that wrote this book. You know what I mean? And I was like, "What? I didn't even know it was in Barnes and Noble bookstores and stuff." You know what I mean? But I found that out through her, and I ended up signing a copy and giving it to her right then and there. I eventually sent her cousin one a couple weeks later, about a week later. So he had a copy. But yeah, it's getting out there. And we just finished a book reading of mine for the Second Rainbow Coalition book reading program. Finished that up Monday today. If y'all want to anybody that's listening want to tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be starting on Hy Thurman's book, Revolutionary Hillbilly. And we if you miss any of these, we have a YouTube channel called the Second Rainbow Coalition, and you can log on to the YouTube channel and follow up on the book discussions and the reading, you know what I mean, right there on there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to using these books continually to be a part of having these conversations, connecting with different people, different demographics. Like one thing I got out of the book reading program that we've been doing, we was doing with my books. My book was we was having a lot of discussions about a lot of different subjects. You know what I mean? And a lot of people was like, "Man, we don't have these type of spaces where we can have these discussions about this." You know what I mean? Where people can vicariously relate to your story, and a lot of people start talking about their own story. You know what I mean? And I agree with Hy Thurman. Like when I finished mine, I was like, "Look, I hope this inspired a lot of y'all to start writing." And a few comrades was like, "Yeah, ever since we started this, like I'm thinking about writing my own and stuff." You know what I mean? And we need that for our generation. I look at, when I put this out, I wanted to start the conversation like I admire a lot of the stuff our ancestors and the comrades of the 60s did. You know what I'm saying? We need to start speaking to our generation and telling our generation, what did we learn from them? You know what I mean? What has our generation learned from them that we can synthesize in a way that we can take the good, the bad, and the ugly and make it into something that we can adapt to our generation. And we need to start speaking to our generation directly. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of the purpose of writing this book. You know what I mean? I want to inspire other revolutionaries of our generations. Hey, let's start having these conversations with each other with books that we write that's going to speak to what we need to do for our generation to make this a successful revolutionary movement and carry on their legacy to its completion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all.
Just case in point, what Kwame's saying, when I was out at University of California, Merced last month, I was speaking to a class of 50 advanced sociologist students. And my first question to them is, how many people have heard about the Rainbow Coalition? 2 people raised their hands. Wow. 48 people in there had never even heard of it. And the instructor had just heard about it through, what we went when we went out there. And so it's really important, try to, he's right, Kwame's right, get it out to your generation, because my generation, they're kind of not around anymore, a lot of them. So we need to do whatever we can do. And the other thing about Kwame's book is it was banned in, was it Indiana prisons?
Yeah, Indiana, 3 weeks in, they was like, nope, it's not allowed here. You know what I mean? So, luckily, it's been getting into other prisons at other states. I have several comrades that have been sending them into different prisons, different states, and they've been able to get them in. So hopefully, this going to be connecting to a lot of people that's going to be getting out. You know what I'm saying? That can take, some of the journey of that I started in prison and realize, like, y'all in there, we need to start to build up a prison liberation movement. One thing, New African Black Panther Party, White Panthers, the strategy that I totally agree with, always agree with this strategy that we need to turn razor wire fences into schools of liberation. You know what I'm saying? Meaning turning the prison liberation movement is a critical part of the revolutionary movement. You know what I'm saying? So tapping into that demographic, I think, is going to be fundamental into helping building up the leadership of this generation. Those brothers and sisters getting out, they have a lot of time in there to study, to read, and put some of this stuff in action. You know what I mean? So I look forward to see how that develops.
Kwame, you just gave me the title of a book that I'm working on now.
Okay.
Razor wire fences. And
right.
I love that because it's about prison poetry and songs and stories and conditions in the prisons. And I've collected a lot of stuff here that I want to put into I don't know how big the book's going to be, but I love that. I love that title.
Okay.
Oh
yeah. I use that.
I inspired the title of his new book.
yeah Rob Rich, which is funny because I was gonna say the White Panthers are working on a prison program that involves education and correspondence. But Rob Rich said the next George Jacksons.
No doubt.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, even Tana Geneva just wrote an article. Well, she wrote an article about the Young Patriots back a few years ago and got into the Washington Post. And some of you have seen it because we've been sharing it on our Facebook. But she has a newsletter that went out, and she's writing about a man that spent 18 years in prison. And they finally let him out because they found out how corrupt the court system was back then. So we're finding out more and more of people in prison, that didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And they're just fucking, ruining people's lives and families, And I think,
and it comes down to politics so often.
Yeah, look at Florida. I mean, Florida is the worst place on earth to live. I mean, as far as I'm concerned right now with what they're doing. They want to lock everybody up and with this cultural war that they have going. And also here in Alabama, they use COVID funds to build 3 for-profit prisons. And because the for-profit prisons threatened to sue Alabama because they weren't filling up their jails. So you can look at more and more and more people going to jail. And I used to visit the ICE detainees here in Alabama. Oh, terrible conditions. They were treated like animals. And their food, they even reported that they had maggots in their food. Some of them didn't have a change of underwear or socks or anything for a year. They were harassed, they were beaten, and the sheriff, you see, anytime there was money left over at the end of the year that's supposed to go to the prisoners, the sheriff could take that money, and he took it, retired, moved to Florida, and bought a big mansion. So they were keeping that money, and we protested, and got some legislation passed finally that there's a separate committee to review that now, and they're not going to do that. So they didn't care. They don't care how they treat people.
Yeah.
So I think the more we can get out there and the more we can work with people who's been incarcerated, I mean, they can really get the word over. I was in jail for a little while, nothing like Kwame or any others, but but that's what we need. We need to really look for that, to start working in that direction.
Yeah. And I say this, being a dialectical materialist, we always see that it's things can turn into its opposite. At one point, prisons was like turning out revolutionaries like George Jackson, like consistently. And they saw that, you know what I mean? You gave rise, it gave rise to a lot of people gravitating to revolutionary politics. Some of the things the Black Panther Party was doing not only transformed the conditions out here where you had the government want to establish WIC, you know what I mean, and give breakfast to kids and stuff to undermine what the Black Panther Party was doing. They was doing some of those type of reforms in prison and stuff. But since then, it turned back into its opposite again. Even what we see out here, where a lot of stuff is being rolled back that we fought for in the 60s and 70s, you know what I mean? Got rid of abortion in this country. Like, a lot of people never thought they would attack the women demographic like that. You know what I'm saying? But that was a start of fascism really taking hold in this country, and a lot of stuff being rolled back, where now, like Hy was saying, like Florida is like one of the fascist capitals of the world. Like we can't teach Black history no more down there. They started attacking the LGBTQI community and the education down there. Down in Texas, you can't even use the word slavery in the books now. It's involuntary relocation. What the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? Involuntary. Let's call it what it is. It's chattel slavery. People was beaten and abused and molested and captured and put on plantation and terrorized. Like, you know what I mean? This is a part of the fascist dynamic. And what Michelle Alexander disclosed in the new Jim Crow, like, it's being played out right before our eyes. They keep on expanding this mass incarceration. But like she said, this was a counterinsurgency against the 60s. You know what I'm saying? This is their response of trying to prevent a movement like the 60s happening again. And they're trying to disconnect us from this population in prison, where they like cutting off visits. A lot of prisons can't even get contact visits no more. During COVID-19, a lot of people don't realize this. In Indiana prisons, I'm pretty sure this was happening across the country. There was a lot of people overdosing from heroin and fentanyl right here in the prisons. But they couldn't get no visits and stuff. You dig what I'm saying? But they was using that to cut off visits to say the visitors is bringing in drugs. Well, if that's the case, well, how is the biggest spike in deaths is happening during COVID-19 when no visitors is able to come into the prisons, but yet y'all having a record amount of overdoses. At that time, it was a record amount of suicides happening and stuff. So this is a part of the repression that they're carrying out against our class, against different particular demographics and stuff within our communities that we had to take note of. And this is why we had to pay attention to these situations like Leon Benson, you know what I'm saying, that was been in there 24 and a half years for something he ain't do. And it's a lot of us that's in there due to that. I remember when, just like he was talking about, they was wanting to fill up a lot of the beds of these prisons and stuff. Imagine the fact of the matter that these beds is not being filled by rich people. They've been filled by lower class, Black, brown, and white. You dig what I'm saying? People in our society and stuff. So this is part of the front lines that we got to pay attention to. That's going to become a bigger and greater integral part of the revolutionary movement in this country. So I'm glad that we even talking about the prison aspect, because this is something that we got to start to gravitate even more so, and building networks around these conditions in there and fighting back against these conditions.
Yeah, and one of the other interesting things, since you're talking about the 60s and 70s, man, people were poor, and they said they were poor because they had no credit. They couldn't get any health care. They couldn't get anything. And I remember that. And so what happened was Wall Street and the government started realizing that one of the quickest ways to kill a poor people's movement was to give them credit. And this is one of the reasons that the Poor People's Campaign now is having problems, is because if you go talk to people, and I talk to a lot of poor folks, a lot of them don't want to be called poor, because they say, hey, I'm not poor. I got the same thing as everybody else has. I have my big, flat TV. I got an old clunker sitting in, here, but they owe for it. They're still in debt, and they're still in poverty. But according to them, psychologically, they're not poor, because people are not, the Poor People's Campaign tries to convince people that, yeah, you are poor, but they don't believe it. I mean, they got the same thing as, as the guy down the street. They got this, computer I'm looking at. They got that cell phone. They got that flat screen TV. They got that old clunker, and I remember you couldn't even go into the hospital without money. I got a hand now that I can barely, I got only 80% of its use because of when I was hurt and went into a hospital with no, with no health care. So if you try to convince them that they're poor, a lot of people said, "Don't be poor," but they are.
Yeah.
You are when you owe for years on every little thing that you got, and you're still living paycheck to paycheck and hand them out.
Right.
Yeah. And I bet you I get 10. I bet you I get 10 offers a week for a credit card.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and just to piggyback off of that, I mean, like my fiance, for example, like, I mean, she's like, well, we're not poor. I have a good job, blah, blah, blah. But like, she's also got 6 figures of fucking student debt. Like,
Poor. Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of money until you're living off of it and paying those payments.
Yeah. That's it. And let it happen. I mean, I see these folks coming in to get their car repaired. They can't afford to get their car repaired. So, they repair their car because they need that to get to work, or to get their kids to school or whatever. Because, and then what happens is, a person living paycheck to paycheck loses their job, and they can't get a job. They lose their, they lose their shelter. They lose their car. And some people even lose their kids.
Yeah.
And some people just lose it and commit suicide. And that's the way this fucking capitalist system is. They don't give a shit about anybody except where you're going to get that money. Look at all the billionaires that came billionaires all of a sudden. I mean, they're all over. But anyway, I just think that we need to get more and more and more of this going on here, what we're doing now.
Yeah. I would like to add to that. Think about this. Where I work at right now, there's a lot of people that work 2 jobs just to make it. And I be thinking to myself, I'm like, man, luckily, and I put myself in the working class, like, category. A lot of people will be like, since my wife, she's a nurse and stuff, and does make pretty good money compared to Florida up here. And that's another thing. Like the demographics around the country, if we was down in Florida, I would be making just as much as her, possibly. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't pay nurses and people shit down in Florida. You know what I'm saying? I'm a certified welder, and they was talking about paying me $12 an hour. I was like, man, I could go
Wow.
and make $15 an hour easily with no skills. You know what I'm saying? But down in Florida, she was getting like $24 an hour. But in certain locations, we don't see like the real state of conditions. You know what I'm saying? Like Indianapolis is probably one of the very few places, because I go a lot of places, that skilled work, unskilled work can get a higher dollar. You know what I'm saying? But even just imagine this: $20 an hour is, in this economy, is a hard like people still working two jobs. The inflation rate of all the goods and services and the bills, like even the apartments and stuff like that, is going up. You know what I'm saying? So it's even hard for people here in Indianapolis just to survive off of that 18, 19, $20 hour job. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing. Like, when people have to take in consideration, if you work in two jobs just to maintain your household, you know what I'm saying? You obviously ain't a middle class person, and you got to realize like the system is rigged against you. You know what I'm saying? It was once upon a time when the American dream was the man was the provider. He worked one job and he could take care of all these kids and his wife. Now the wife, the husband, and the kids is out there on the plantation, you know what I mean, just to survive and support the household. You know what I'm saying? And that's really, and this one thing I recognize, you know what I'm saying? That's the real state of affairs around the United States right now. That's why when we was out in California, we saw so many homeless people out there. You know what I'm saying? We saw it in encampments. Like I've never saw a fenced in area where you saw all these tents, and this is in Oakland, people. This is in the heart of where the Black Panther Party started at. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's by coincidence. I think that's by design. Like how they saw that area as a place that they needed to repress. You know what I'm saying? And we saw a big long parking lot area that was turned into a homeless encampment. You know what I'm saying? I think another thing, because I was talking about people dying in prison over the heroin and fentanyl overdoses. We got to understand, this is a class struggle, and it's a class war going on, and drugs is the weapons of mass destruction that they're using against our community right now. They're not just dying in prison. People overdosing from fentanyl out here. Like I hear that they've even putting weed in fentanyl and weed out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not by coincidence, this is by design. And we need to start thinking about even those type of programs. I like that the White Panthers got the Narcan program helping a lot of these brothers and sisters that's having these overdoses out here, that's strung out on drugs. This is a part of the counterinsurgency strategy. If you hooked on drugs, like, you're not thinking about revolution. If you hooked on drugs, you ain't thinking about solidarity with your community. You know what I'm saying? And these are things that we have to continually be aware of, talk about, and develop different strategies of how we attack this. And again, salute to the White Panthers on the Narcan program, and providing that as a resource to help at least individuals to get their life, maintain their life. You know what I'm saying? After overdosing on certain drugs and stuff. But this is a problem that we need to pay more and more attention to, speak on.
Actually, I want to just elaborate on a couple things there. The Narcan thing, we're starting to work that into our housing work out here. Like when we met up with the people that are living at the Cranston Street Armory in Providence the first time, one of the first requests, when we were asking, like, how can we help? One of the first requests was Narcan.
Wow. Yeah.
And also the situation in California. The last time that I was in California was like 3 years ago. I went on vacation there when I was living in Arizona. And I was in Santa Monica, right, which is like super bougie right? There's like a plaza basically right off the pier of all these like bougie stores and shit. And that whole area was, you know, people sleeping under tarps or sleeping in tents or sleeping, you know, just in a sleeping bag. That whole area. And in that same vacation, I went to the Hollywood Star Walk, and the whole fucking street is, you know, lined with people sleeping under the overhangs over stores. Somebody in the comments said that they live in California and the whole state is bad.
Yeah. Hey, right. We went to like 5 cities for the tour up there, and we saw it everywhere. And remember, like, California is supposed to be like one of the richest place. That California is richer than a lot of countries. You know what I mean?
Right.
But California, just like a lot of places, have third world conditions that is hidden from people unless we talk about it. Like, people talk about Skid Row. Skid Row is scattered across all of California. It's scattered across Portland. It's scattered across Seattle. Like, we start seeing a lot of this stuff. You know what I mean? In the Midwest, they try to sweep this under the rug and start banning and making laws against homeless people. It's a war on the homeless. You know what I mean? Just like back in the 60s, it was a war on poverty, which was really a war on us. You know what I'm saying? But this is a major problem that like when we was out in Philadelphia, we was in Kensington area. We went to a place called Needle Park.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been in a park where people was shooting up drugs right there in front of you, like slumping over. The police is riding around in bicycles. They was monitoring the situation. This was like a unwritten policy that they had where they was going to control the drug market out there. And this is why I feel like this is a part of a counterinsurgency. This is a weapons of mass destruction. This is chemical warfare.
It's genocide.
On our community. You know what I'm saying? Because they understand how this helps maintain this system. You know what I'm saying? By keeping us strung out on drugs, and this the complete hopelessness, complete alienation from our community, ourselves. You know what I'm saying? This is what this is a reflection of. And I want to keep this, everyone keep this in mind. This is the same government that was bringing cocaine and crack into our community back in the 80s. We all familiar with the Freeway Rick Ross story. You know what I'm saying? With the CIA was working and the DEA was working with them and funding that situation over in Nicaragua, in El Salvador. You know what I'm saying? In the 80s. But also, this another thing, a story with El Chapo. If you have a chance to watch, it's on Netflix. It's called El Chapo. Watch that. It sets out how the DEA had a deal with El Chapo. You know what I mean? We know he locked up right now, but that's because he bit the hand that fed them. You know what I'm saying? But he was allowing, the DEA had a agreement with allowing El Chapo to pump drugs into the United States as long as he kept on giving up drug dealers and making it seem like the war on drugs was real. You know what I mean? Like, how you gonna call up the biggest drug dealer in the world at the time and say we're fighting the war on drugs, but you're allowing this individual to pump drugs in our community? One of the places that they said most of the drugs was going to, of all places, was Chicago. Imagine why Chicago? Because Chicago was the hub, really, of in a lot of ways, of the revolutionary movement in the 60s. You know what I'm saying? Even the street organizations was coming together, which was the original. A lot of the original street organizations in the Midwest started in Chicago. The Rainbow Coalition started in Chicago. They was bringing unity in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? So 80% of the drugs was going to a location where they said, we don't never want Chicago ever to get it back together. You know what I'm saying? This is why we see the crime, the violence and the killing up there in Chicago. This is all being directed as a part of a class war against us. You know what I'm saying? And we definitely got to pay attention.
Yeah, I wanted to that point, there's a scene in The Godfather, if you've seen those, where they were just getting into the drug business. And one of the leaders said, well, who cares? Somebody said this is not right. We shouldn't get into this. And they said, well, go sell it in the black neighborhoods because, why should we care if they destroy their soul? And that's the way it was. And in Chicago, to your point there, and also to Philadelphia, what is it? Kensington Street.
Yeah.
They allow drug dealers to come down on that street and sell drugs openly, and they and they don't even bother them, and we walk down that street. I tell you, first person I saw walked up and said, "Hey man, you got any powder?" And they were kept, they kept bothering us to some extent. But the thing about Chicago is that, now I will say that, and Cha-Cha and I talked about this, the Young Lords, the Panthers, the Young Patriots, some of the other groups, on a weekly basis, they would find a drug, they would find a bag of cocaine somewhere that was meant for their members. They really wanted, us to get strung out on drugs. The other thing was they took guns. The cops would take stolen and confiscated guns and drop them into these neighborhoods and hoping that the gangs would kill each other. So there was never a lack of drugs or a lack of guns, within these communities. And that's what people don't realize. And Kwame's right. That's where the Rainbow Coalition started. That's where Mayor Daley had the war on gangs. That's where they came in with the COINTELPRO. They were all over the place. The Red Squad. They were so much harassing and taking people's medications as they left the clinic. And they would brutalize people and kill people. But then on the other hand, they were known to give people drugs even within the community and hopefully to get them, hooked on drugs. And luckily at that time, it wasn't a big part of the Southern culture. Alcohol was. And so it took some time before it reached the community, but they would definitely try to get people, hooked on drugs because they had a bottomless supply of drugs, And so cops were out there selling it. I've known a lot of cops that went out there and sold drugs, selling IDs, false IDs, and that's one of the first thing that happened to me was I was thrown in the back of a squad car. And one of the first questions was, let me see your ID. And I said, well, I can't because I'm only 17 and I'm not a draft age or anything. And they said, well, you want to buy one? They were going to sell me a fake ID.
Wow.
And so they were constantly into that stuff all the time. Even that Somerville police station in the area was busted in 1959 for stolen prostitution, drugs. And they had their own burglars that would go out and they'd say, hey, I'm having a cookout this weekend. You got to go out and get this for me or I'm gonna throw you in jail for some crime. Or when they were busted finally by the FBI, they had to go into one cop's house and take a ring off of his wife's finger, and that's how corrupt they were, extremely corrupt. And so I don't know if there's any hope, for any police department.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anti-cop all the way. But,
Right.
if they can do that again, what they've done is they've destroyed the movement. I think with drugs, with credit, with a lot of different areas, or just by oppression. And I think we need to be educated to that point. We got to know enough to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say to follow up on that, like I said, we not saying that the police is ever the solution. That's why we even bringing this up. because a lot of people think the police somehow here to serve and protect us. We still
Because
got
they painted on their cars.
yeah. And when we as kids, Officer Friendly used to come to our schools and try to convince us that he's here to fight crime and protect our community and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? But that's all bullshit. Like we see, like the more we became conscious of what really going on in our community, they was behind a lot of this stuff. You know what I mean? That's going on in our community, the violence, the crime, the drugs. You know what I'm saying? And it's gonna take us like building networks within our communities to start to take back our communities and stuff. You know what I mean? This is another thing that I want people to get out of, like this Principal Unity tour. It's us that's the solution to the problems. All the problems in our community is going to be solved by us. It's not going to be solved by the Democratic Party. It's not going to be solved by the Republican Party. It's not going to be resolved by the state. You know what I'm saying? It's their mission, it's their class interest to maintain the dysfunction that is going on in our community. You know what I'm saying? This book, when I published this book and they banned this book, and Leon can talk about this now he's out. He can really explain to people. They told him, they said, yeah, we're banning this because Kwame, he works with gangs and stuff, and we don't want to promote that. And I was like, they even told him, yeah, Kwame did some event in Indianapolis at the church back in July 2020. And I knew they knew about it because they was out there undercovers taking pictures of everybody that was coming there. You know what I mean? But the whole purpose of this event was street organization leaders of the 60s going to tell this generation, like, y'all got to stop killing each other. Y'all got to stop the violence in our community. Y'all got to start thinking about building up the community and not being a part of the problem. And they told them their real history is like, look, we started off by protecting our community. Like we wasn't out here beefing. This is what the system undermined us. You know what I'm saying? And locked a lot of us away and put people in place that they fed drugs and guns and stuff to undermine what we was trying to do. We was about, liberation of our community and stuff at that point. Like Martin Luther King lived in our neighborhoods, was organizing and using us for security. Fred Hampton and stuff was working with the street organizations. You know what I mean? This is the real legacy and stuff. But they saw that as a threat. Think about this. Everything that's been positive has been a threat. Like speaking about history down in Florida is banned. Why? Because that's a threat. You know what I'm saying? Black history books and stuff taught in the books that was being sent to prisoners and stuff was banned. Like you couldn't get, they started banning books about the Black Panthers. They started banning books about Malcolm X, even Martin Luther King. This is a person that y'all got a federal holiday at, but in certain places in this country, they look at him as, no, we have to ban everything, even associated with Martin Luther King. You know what I'm saying? So this is the class struggle that we really up against. And it's going to be us that's going to be the solution to the problem. And this is the message that we want to project throughout this whole Principal Unity tour.
Right. Like the prison system tries to pretend like it is there to reform and fucking help people rebuild their lives and get away from the violent shit or whatever that was in their past. Right. But that speaks volumes right fucking there, that when that's precisely what you're doing is trying to redirect them of like, no, how about we build something positive in our community instead of fighting each other? That they're like, oh wait, you're a fucking threat? Are you kidding me? That speaks all you need to know about their motivation there, that they're like, wait a minute, you're causing trouble by getting them on a right track. What?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I had a person to look at that. You've seen that iconic picture of the Rainbow Coalition where we're all together.
Yeah.
There's someone showed it to a friend of his, or his boss actually, and he said, "Oh yeah, well it was my nephew that did it." Said, "This is my uncle right here in this picture," and he said, "What's wrong with him? Doesn't he like white people?" You know, that was the first thing he thought of. I didn't like white people because I'm associated with black people.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
wild.
It is. It really is. You know, and we, like Kwame saying, we're the ones that got to keep it going somehow.
Right.
Somehow we got to do it. And the only thing is, we don't have a national leader. But I think the Rainbow Coalition could be a national leader eventually, because we need that.
Right.
We need it
Really?
desperately. You know, and
sorry, go ahead. Hy.
I was just going to say, we need to get a bail bond going, because people are going to be arrested and people are going to get hurt, you know, eventually. Somehow what we're doing is it's going to come back, you know, the cops are going to, you know, they're going to, them or, you know, white supremacists or, you know, Nazis, you know, whoever is going to,
right.
You know, they're going to start causing trouble, especially with Trump and that, you know, people with an IQ of 30.
Right.
So
well, let's not forget the people that are just as fascist as Trump, but you know, smarter. Ron DeSantis. I mean, we keep talking about fucking Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
They instituted anti-propaganda curriculum while he's taking out Black history, and not just Black history, all people of color in history. You know what I mean? They just banned it. Robert Clemente's book. He was a major league baseball player. You know what I mean? And they found a reason to even ban his book. But he's going to now, in replace of this, he's going to institute curriculum of starting up this Red Scare shit again. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to build up this McCarthy, the new era of McCarthyism for our generation, where people start to even if you probably use the word socialism, communism, stuff like that, which most people still don't know what that even is. You know, to ask the average person, so what is it? I really don't know. Okay, think about that. They creating a boogeyman, and they're about to start indoctrinating our kids down in Florida with that shit. You know what I'm saying? And this is one thing. We building. This is going to be a protracted struggle, and we're going to be building layers upon layers of how we build this infrastructure. But one thing I always advocate is that we eventually get back to our own liberation schools. Like when we start getting these institutions that in our community, that's going to be a critical pillar to the revolutionary movement, because we can start kids off right with a decolonialized mentality. You know what I'm saying? A revolutionary mentality, and start to see themselves as leaders of the new society that we want to bring in place. You know what I mean? And this is going to be critical to building a generation that didn't have to educate themselves because they never got miseducation in the first place. You know what I'm saying? But right now, that's one of the critical components that we're struggling against in our generation, is because we all was indoctrinated by these colonial schools. You know what I'm saying? So we're all going through a re-educational process to even help us understand the reality of what the history of this country was even about. This is one reason why they don't want this curriculum in schools no more that even speaks anything about it, because they don't want people to know the struggles that we went through. They don't want to know that we united with each other against the system. They don't want to know about teacher, but they never talked about the Rainbow Coalition when I was going to school. You know what I mean? I didn't even know who Fred Hampton was until I went to prison. You know what I'm saying? And found out about Fred Hampton. I used to think the Black Panther Party was a racist Ku Klux Klan type of organization that Black people was doing. Like, think about that type of propaganda. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be us that's gonna have to be the ones that, you know, prepare the next generation for this struggle going ahead with proper education, a scientific education, a proper understanding of our class struggle throughout the year.
Yeah.
Goddamn right. Especially in the shit that they were proposing replacing critical race theory with and shit was shit like, okay, how about we start teaching Florida students black conservatism and black capitalism? That's what they wanted to fucking replace real black history, real American history with, was capitalism and conservatism. And it's like, these motherfuckers are really trying everything that they can think of to push things as fascist as they can.
Right.
That's fucked.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. 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 That's where we at nowadays.
Well, Kwame, wasn't your wife just sent to Facebook jail?
Yeah. She posted a thing about a missing person. And they put her on Facebook jail for like a day. And that's what she do. Everybody know her sister is missing. You know what I mean? Like we not, this is not a national crisis right now, missing people. Why is it? Because the government is involved in some of this human trafficking that y'all want to start intimidating people that's setting out this type of stuff? You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
I was put in jail for using the word imperialism.
To tell that story. I don't think there's another
Where
story
is
in the
that
Bible that's been told
coming from?
more times.
Oh, sorry.
Hey,
I found
man. Yeah, it's crazy. Like we seeing on social media, this is part of that class struggle that they waging. Like they trying to intimidate. I remember when in 2020, when we was really doing a lot of boots on the ground work around police brutality, they literally would hack into my phone. You know what I'm saying? And shut my Facebook all the way down. Like my battery go from 100% to 0 and cut off on me when we would shut down the streets here in Indianapolis. You know what I'm saying? They used to blur out different actions that we were doing. When we was out in California for the book tour, they was hacking into our phone and rerouting our GPS. You know what I'm saying? Trying to prevent us from even going to these bookstores and doing these presentations. One time we was going to from Oakland to San Francisco to one of the book presentation spots, and GPS started redirecting me 2 hours and 9 minutes away from the location that we were supposed to go to. I forget what city. I want to say we was in Merced, where they was messing with me and Hyde's phone, where they was sending us all over the place. Luckily, another comrade was with us, where we used his GPS and it finally got us to the location. Like, these are the undermining things that they're doing. They've been hacking into Hy Thurman's bank account. They deleted my phone number from his phone. You know, where he had to reach out to me on Facebook recently. He was like, "Hey, comrade, I need you to resend me your phone number," because they deleted your phone number was deleted in my phone amongst other people. Like, this
yeah, my computers have been attacked over and over again. You know, I've had to get rid of 2 desktops because it's been ruined. We get constantly hacked and my computer taken over by ransomware and all this stuff. It's just, you know.
Wow.
You got to watch it. You got to watch it. They'll do it.
Right? They're desperate. They'll use any means they can access.
Yeah. COINTELPRO is real.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it didn't go away either.
Never did.
Right. It's not a resurgence of it. It never stopped.
It never stopped. You know, and another case in point is I went to get a gun permit here in Alabama, and I got rejected, of course. And they told me the reason why. They had really 2 false arrests from me on the FBI list. And I had to contact Chicago, and I had to contact Rock Island, Illinois, and to get an affidavit saying that, and they said they don't know anything about it, except I was supposed to have I was never charged with it. They tried to charge us with burglary, which was stupid. In Rock Island, we went to a university to promote our Revolution 2 film, and was invited to a party. And then we went to a party, and as we were leaving the party, we were surrounded by the cops, and they took handcuffed us, put in the back of the car. We said, what are you charging us with? And then they took us into the jail. And I don't know, it was about 2 a.m. or something after that, is early, and took each of us, there's 3 of us, separate times, individually. They took us into a room with the 2 FBI agents and the sheriff. And they said that they found a collector's coin on the seat of where we were sitting in the squad car, and that they were going to charge us with theft and burglary.
Wow.
And they said, oh, also we have a bag of white powdered substance in your car, and we don't know what it is, so we can't let you out. We're analyzing this. And they said we could also charge you with possession of a narcotic. And we said, we don't know a damn thing what you're talking about. And they said, but there are ways of getting out of this if you can work with me, And so they wanted us to be their informants, and we just told them, fuck you. We're not doing anything because we're not doing anything for you because we didn't do anything. Well, we got a lawyer to come down, and it was like on a Monday. This is Friday when this happened, and we had to stay the whole weekend. And then on Monday, the lawyer came down and said, you either charge these guys with something, show us proof, or we're going to file a false arrest suit. So they let us go, but they wanted to know, what the hell is this white substance that we tested it for everything, and we said it's dog powder, flea powder, belonged to the guy that owned the car. So it was just some powders for his dog's fleas. And so they didn't charge us, but it went on the FBI list. See, and so that I found that out, and I had to get an affidavit, and I still can't get it erased. Wow. Those 2 charges. So they'll do anything they can do just to fuck with you. And I know a lot of people now who's got the same problem. They're they got a false statement on the FBI, and they can't seem to get it off. And I was told, well, you have to go to court and do this and do that. And I said, hell, I ain't going anywhere. I'm not going to put up with that. You'll find something else to charge me with, or charge me guilty, the way these courts.
Or, like charge you with contempt of court because you took them to court over a false arrest.
Yeah, I mean
they'll just make shit up. They've done it before.
They have ways of doing that, and so I've got proof that I was never charged for any of this, but yet it's still on my record as an FBI, with the FBI files, that I was arrested. So they're gonna, and I know that's kept me from getting jobs and other things over the years, because I even went into a bank and tried to open an account one time. They wouldn't allow it. And they said, well, there's something on your federal record. So
that's wild.
Wouldn't give me a damn bank account. So I know that a lot of other people have gone through the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, not something like that, but I did have an issue applying for a job. I don't know, probably like 7-8 years ago, something like that. I was trying to get a cook job at a nursing home, I think it was, and an arrest from when I was 17, which I was charged with minor in possession of alcohol. And they were originally going to charge, I did get charged with minor in possession of alcohol. They were originally going to charge me with assault and battery, but like when it went to court, it was determined, that didn't fucking happen. But of course, they charged me as an adult, yada, yada, yada. And then like a decade later, I didn't get a job because that was still on my report.
Yep. That's it. It's hard to get it off there. So you imagine how many people got it on there now that they're charging people just to, and they want to, they all want to look good. It's like cops writing tickets. You know, you give them a quota and they're going to get it somehow or another. And it's just like if they got to, you know, have to show these feds and other cops showing that they're doing a good job, they got to have something to show for it, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's what it's
Right.
all about, you know, destroy people's lives just because of their, you know, their career, you know? And if you're lucky enough, they don't shoot you, you know? So, you know, I just read a report of, was it Louisville? One of the, I forget now, but they turned the attack dogs onto a kid and they chewed his arm off, you know?
Wow.
And they chewed, you know, another guy and they almost chewed his foot off, you know, and neither one of them were resisting arrest, you know, according to the body cams. They were both laying down when this happened and they just set the dogs on them and said, bite, you know? And so that's what they are. They, you know, they're sick, most of them. I got a cop that was right next door to me, and he said that all the people living in the projects down there are just animals. You know,
Wow.
that's his attitude toward them.
I mean, that's not even like, you know, fascism behind a facade. That is straight up fascist thought.
Well, he's got this huge Confederate flag in his garage, and he just reconditioned the General, you know, that car that was on Dukes of Hazzard. He just redid that, and it's got this huge damn flag on top of it. You know, he's got the Confederate flag on the back of his truck, you know, and he's on the police force. So you know where he's coming from.
This
thing is, that's who they look for when they're hiring.
What's that?
I said that's who they look for when they're hiring. They're looking for motherfuckers who literally have like an 80 to 90 IQ tops of like just smart enough to understand orders, not smart enough to question them. People who have a proclivity for violence and who already have these fucking stigmas as far as their views of others, where they are ready and willing to dehumanize anybody they see as different.
Yes.
And will have to take violence against them. That's what they seek out in their hiring.
Sure, they want people. They train people to kill.
Yeah.
You know, there was another instance here in Alabama where a man was threatening to kill himself with a flare gun, and he was, you know, he had mental problems, and there were two cops in there they were trying to talk him down, and this other Rambo cop comes walking in with a shotgun, and he tells the guy to put it down, and the guy made a move actually to himself, and then he blew the guy's head off. But this ain't all the story. What the interesting thing is, the city council here in Huntsville, Alabama, kept him on the force and paid his salary and paid his legal fees. And it took the whole community here to get together and got the guy charged with murder, this cop. But it took almost everyone in the whole community, you know, saying, look, how can you do this? He just blew this guy's head off. He just killed him.
Yeah.
You know, and now they're paying for his appeal. And this is the city council.
Right.
You know? We got another council member that was just arrested for shoplifting. And that's like his 9th time. He's been shoplifting. He went into Walmart, walked right out with like $400 worth of groceries. And now they're trying to protect him.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's the blue line protecting the blue line, and the crooked politicians protecting the crooked politicians.
And I think one thing that's for our generation that we got to be cognizant of is how fascism is even using identity politics to that's being used within the Black and brown community. Like we saw Herschel Walker, a Black politician, you know what I mean?
Yeah, call it that. Yeah,
ideological campaign. We see recently with even celebrities like Kanye West talking about he loved Hitler. He's visiting Donald Trump with a white supremacist. You dig what I'm saying? We see the situation with the Terry Nichols being killed by 5 black police officers. You dig what I'm saying? Fascism is not a Hitler type of fascism of the 30s. Like, it's been able to morph and adapt to our times, and it will use black faces, it will use brown faces to carry out these policies. Like here in Indianapolis, we have a black police chief, and he's been covering up all the murders, you know what I'm saying, that the pigs been carrying out against our community. Up in Gary, Indiana, when Rashad Cunningham was killed, you know what I mean, by the this black pig up there named Isaiah Price III. You know what I mean? This is his second time killing somebody. I went to one of their council meetings, and it was all black politicians. You know what I'm saying? That's sitting on these boards. You know, this is how neo-colonialism. Even when we talk about fascism, we gotta point out how the Democratic Party, they're a liberal fascist party. You know what I'm saying? They use neo-colonialism to carry out some of these same type of policies. Remember, it was Barack Obama that overthrew Gaddafi, and now it's black slavery over there in Libya right now. It was Barack Obama that was initiated this coup over in Ukraine, where they sending weapons over to a fascist battalion over there, Azov battalion. You're gonna say everybody know now that this is a neo-Nazi battalion that's pushing neo-Nazi fascist views over there. But this was the Democratic Party that initiated this. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times we make distinctions, but the content is the same. It might take on different forms depending on if it's the Trumps and the Ron DeSantis. You know what I'm saying? It's more overt. You know what I'm saying? But the Democrats, they have a liberal fascist policy that they've been carrying out as well. You know what I'm saying? We just saw Javier Bolsonaro giving a speech down in Florida, where they had a similar January 2nd 6th situation down there in Brazil. You know what I mean? Yeah. Trying to overthrow that government and reinstituting fascism down there. You know what I'm saying? So we living in peculiar times, and like Fred Hampton said, if we don't stop fascism gonna stop us all.
Yeah, and most people don't know about how Barack Obama used the Rainbow Coalition politics to get to Washington, because it was responsible for getting Harold Washington, the first black mayor, elected in Chicago, and also Bobby Rush, who was one of the co-founders of the Black Panthers in Chicago. First got to be in the Illinois Senate, and that's Barack Obama ran against him and was not using the rainbow politics, but he later on used it to get into Illinois Senate, and then he used it to get into the national politics, So he used that, but never gave anybody, any credit for it, of course, So that's how he got into it and started using, the rainbow politics. And they'll use anything they can to get there, but once they get there, forget it.
Yeah.
They don't have any, compassion or anything like that. So.
Yeah, and this is also part of taking our legacy back from these politicians that took the Rainbow Coalition politics. And this is crazy. It's just like my misunderstanding of the Black Panther Party due to capitalist propaganda that was put out about the Black Panther Party as being racist and all this other stuff. Now we find out they weren't. It's the same thing like he was talking about when Jesse Jackson took the Rainbow Coalition. Even he took the name Rainbow Push Coalition. For the longest, when I heard Rainbow Coalition, I was always thinking about Jesse Jackson. You know what I mean? Never knowing that he took this from Fred Hampton and them. You dig what I'm saying? And took this and earned it and co-opted for the bourgeoisie, for the capitalists, for the electoral politics way of bringing the people in and making them getting them back into the system. You know what I'm saying? So part of this tour is also taking back our legacy and putting it in its right place. And it started on a revolutionary path, not a reformist path of conciliating with the system and being neo-colonial agents working with the system and upholding the capitalist imperialist system. You know what I mean? Like, it's taking back our legacy and letting people know this started not with Jesse Jackson and the Democratic Party, but it started with revolutionaries like Fred Hampton, with revolutionaries like Hy Thurman, with revolutionaries like Jose Chacha Jimenez and stuff. You know what I mean? So this is educating as well.
Yeah. So we are going on 2 hours now. So, if you guys got anything you want to say before we wrap up, this has been great. Honestly, I just want to say that.
Yeah, what I would say is never give up. I know it's frustrating. I know it. Sometimes you don't think you're winning, and sometimes you don't think that you've made any progress. But when I was writing my book, a guy named Scott Crow, who some of you might know, is an author of various books, anarchist, called me up and said, "Hi, I want to pay for your editing of the book." I said, "Why would you do that?" And he said, "Because you guys fed me in your breakfast program." So
all power to the people.
That's that's the paycheck right there. When you know that somebody like that would come up and say, "Yeah, I remember you. I remember what you did. What you guys were doing, and now is dedicated to the revolution." So that's really what's about. Don't ever give up, because you don't ever know who you might touch, who you might influence. They may not ever talk to you about it, but you're out there doing it. You know what I mean? And it only takes just a few people to start a group or whatever,
right?
And just start it, or use other organizations as a model, So that's what we got to realize, that most people are afraid of saying. They'll say, "Well, I can't do that." Well, you can, and you should do something. So,
right.
That would be my final thought.
Yeah, I will follow up with Hy said, and I think this interview really captured what he said with my relationship with y'all. Like, I met y'all on an interview that was like a year ago. About 14 months ago or something, I did an interview with y'all. Yeah. And that inspired y'all. Like, now y'all part of the White Panther movement. Y'all part of the Second Rainbow Coalition with us. Like, I never knew that interview was gonna end with y'all taking a trajectory. I kind of figured it might go that way after talking to y'all.
Meeting you definitely lit a fire under our asses.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, honestly, like, when it comes down to it, as far as like, furthering my political education and like really inspiring me to, like get back out on the ground. Cause I mean, I had a few years where I just didn't, really do anything. I was involved in Occupy forever ago, but I was kind of like disillusioned by that, right? Because it was basically taken over by liberals and run into the ground by the government.
Right.
But that being said, I mean, meeting you and Shaka and like reading some stuff from Tom Watts and, talking to Jake and Rob Rich. I mean, really, that whole trajectory started talking to you.
Right. That's what we hope come out of this Principal Unity tour. Like, we don't know who's gonna come that's gonna be inspired. That might be the next Hy Thurman, the next Jose Chacha Jimenez, the next Fred Hampton, next Huey P. Newton, George Jackson, Asada Shakur, you know what I mean? Like Erica Huggins. This opens up those conversations and also open up the minds of the people of the possibility that is before them. They might not know about the Second Rainbow Coalition until they come hear me and Hy Thurman talk about this. They might not know about the White Panthers is out here, the new African Black Panther Party, the Poor People's Army, the Young Lords, the Brown Berets. They might not even know this is already going on. You know what I mean? Because, you know, the bourgeois media recognized they made a mistake by putting a lot of that stuff in the media in the 60s. And the Panthers and all them capitalized on this. So right now, this is our way of speaking to the people directly. You know what I mean? And let them know, we out here. And we trying to continue this legacy. So, yeah, that's the closing thing I would like to leave everyone with. You never know who's gonna be inspired, and the fact that Rob right here, Zen is a part of the movement, and that started off with a interview, and now we here. You know what I mean? We here, and they comrades of ours, and we look forward. Like, this gonna be a pleasure being on this tour with you, comrade Rob. Like,
I keep reiterating, I'm so fucking excited for it.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be historic. It's gonna be something that if you ever write your memoirs, it's definitely gonna probably be a chapter in that book.
Oh yeah, it would have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel like there's better people than me to write a book, but I mean that being said, to circle back to what you guys were talking about earlier in the show, I mean, the more of us that do this, though, the more word gets out.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I mean, part of my like hang up when I initially like even like had the idea of a book crossing my mind, my initial holdup was like, well, I mean, you know, like, I don't know if I can really like contribute anything. But that being said, like, I mean, that's just like some, you know, like defeatist thinking, really. I mean, like you said, it only takes a couple of people to start something.
Right.
Don't it? You know, if nothing's ever said, then nothing's ever heard. And you know, we got to say it. You know, we got to tell them. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go because I got a couple of calls, but this has been great.
Yeah, it has. I also have to make a couple of calls. So,
yeah, if you can let me know about some hotels in that area, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So would it be for the night before or the night after?
Probably the night before. I tell you what, I'll let you know. Let me check it out here and see.
Okay. Well, yeah, we don't have to do that on the air, I guess.
No. Yeah.
Well, all prior to the people, comrades, this was a great discussion. Thanks for having me and Hy on, and look forward to this Principal Unity Tour / East Coast Book Tour coming up in a couple weeks.
And then we will get to Flint. We will get up there.
Oh yeah. Let me know when you're ready to start planning that. That'll be beautiful.
Okay.
All power. It has been an absolute delight visiting with you both.
You too.
All right, now, all power to the people.
All power to the people.